Greetings, hello, Hare Krishna. This is Jvalamukhi Dasi here with the J Files. Today I am recording video number 35 in the series. The series is based on my journal or my book that I'm writing called My Hoo-Hoo and the Destiny of the Universe, the Golden Age, the Great Sinister Movement, and the Firewalk of a Hare Krishna Kid. Today's entry concerns a previous life recall that was in great vivid detail. And this particular recall has really stayed with me over the years as a very strongly impactful lifetime wherein destiny really took its direction or course from the desires from that lifetime. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita tells Arjuna that he can remember that both of them have had many, many lifetimes, but that only the Lord remembers all of them, whereas Arjuna cannot remember all of them. So in this entry, I'm going over the details of some snippets of a very impactful lifetime that has propelled me to where I am today. And then, of course, later in the sharing, I will show how this lifetime was also preceded by another one, which led me there. So all in all, the soul is eternal, and we take many, many births according to our desires. And then each and every one of these lifetimes is an opportunity to have new desires. And ultimately, the desire for pure devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what brings us out of the cycle of birth and death. And fortunately, most people don't remember their previous lifetimes, or they would have gone crazy. So this is definitely, it was very disorienting, as you will see. So this was written January 11th, 2012. It's titled Shaman Woman. I am still feeling disoriented from my 3-hour session today. I went to the temple right before I went to Mahaprabhu's house and prayed to Lord Krishna to please allow me to release anything that is keeping me disempowered. Yesterday, I was in a foul mood, feeling the push to just go lie down and sleep and be nasty and give up. Excuse me, I'm going to just readjust this so that I can read it better. Here we are. It's too small for my aging eyes here. There we are. Okay. I realized that this energy, this covering energy of disempowerment related to the intense pain in my neck and head, the one that has been bothering me more than usual as of late. The three, oh gosh, okay, so it's in the title, so I have to just say it, okay? It's always embarrassing, but hey, this is what led me to self-realization. The 3-year itch and cracking of my vagina is also on an all-time high, and I'm having my second period in 1 month. Jai. Great. Ugh. These female bodies sure are a trip. I also knew that the pain had to do with the corpse under the stairs at Grandma's house and me being made to have sex with it. Do you think that would do it? So, I've been staying at home the last few days, and in my free moments between cleaning and cooking, chanting my rounds, eating and answering the phone, I have practiced the guitar and thought about doing my real estate business ventures. I could have actually accomplished much more if I would have been clear and passionate, focused on what to do, but I realized that this energy of disempowerment has affected my desire and ability to accomplish anything. I wanted to lay all this down and become actually effective. I asked the Lord and Srila Prabhupada. Today, I got the beginning of my answer. I was joking with Mahaprabhu as we started off. Lying here on your comfy table in your serene setting is the scariest place I know, I said. She laughed and agreed with me, telling me how she had run out of a massage with she was getting a massage, and during the massage, this is many, many years ago, she had run out of the massage with a panic attack in the beginning of her own process of healing. The massage therapist who was working with her had some experience of people having body memories, and so kept her cool when Kamrat started freaking out. She told me that I was very brave. I didn't feel very brave. I felt very scared most of the time, though I have heard that courage means to act in spite of fear. That I do. I have no choice. You see, I don't want to be one moment longer in this material world than I need to be. I am afraid of Maya. I am afraid of illusion. It is most dangerous. I wish I had a positive attraction to Krishna. That would change everything. As an aside, before I lose this point, most days I wake up. You know how you shift from sleep to awake, and there's sort of an in-between state. So for me, I'm always meditating on how to get this message, and for people to be able to hear this message. So sort of in my subconscious, it's already playing before I wake up. And so this morning I woke up with thoughts about dogma and dharma. It was a discussion that we had on our weekly Sangha where we read and chant together. And my teacher had said something, because I asked her a question, how will people who are steeped in dogma hear? Because, you know, you meet the typical religious fanatic or zealot, and they say you're going to hell because you don't believe their version. So I'm like, how, you know, Lord Chaitanya's come, you know, there's this message, how are people going to hear? And she said something very, very amazing, which is that dogma is the domain of cowards. That's, wow, that totally struck me, because you have to actually step out of what's safe, what's socially acceptable, what's you know, you feel that you won't be criticized for, or if it's, or you just don't have any realization, so you're holding on to somebody else's set of rules and regulations and thinking that you're safe in this way. So this morning I was realizing that if you're courageous enough to have your own adventure with God, to have your own adventure with self-realization, that's where you actually get vegan or realized knowledge. So it's not just theoretical, and you're not just following rules and regulations or book knowledge or what is the standard way of practicing. This is when realization actually goes deep in the heart, and that that's uncharted territory, and you actually have to have enough faith in the Lord. And in my case, I have a guide who's helping me, and that's what we're supposed to do for each other. Sadhu Sangha, you know, where we're helping each other on this path, and being able to actually apply the philosophy and our own personal kshetras, our own fields of experience. So I was a little trepidatious this morning about reading this, because like it's so far out. You're like, wow, you're just making all this stuff up. This is crazy. That's, you know, what the mind always says, you know. Oh. But again, always you have to fall back on, well, Krishna is real. I prayed to him. I have no ulterior motive. I'm not looking for past lives. I'm just trying to be effective and do something useful here before this body gets too old. So I'm praying, show me what I need to see so that I can be useful and empowered. And then this comes up, and it just bubbles up, and it makes so much emotional sense. If I look backwards on the trajectory of my life, and also physically, you know, the symptoms clear up when you acknowledge and accept what your body's screaming at you. There's impressions that are stored in the body for lifetimes. For lifetimes. So here we are. Mahaprabhu immediately noticed something in my heart chakra and began working on it. I felt nothing, and I joked with her. See, nothing here, ha ha ha. You are just a hocus pocus witch doctor, I joked. I have no problem. It's all you. We both smiled. We spoke of many times women like us were burned at the stake for speaking about things people would much rather hide. I no longer want to hide from myself. To keep this as short as possible and get to the main points, with lots of screams, gut-wrenching sobs that hurt to the deepest place of my heart, and choking on thick mucus through streams of tears, The following scenes played out, accompanied by crescendos of horror. As an aside, another aside, I hate horror movies. I can't believe people watch those things. I'm like, and I can't watch anything that has any level of horror to it or um, suspense. My innards just start shaking. It's like, no, thank you. Don't even ask me about war movies. No way. I stood at the door to the basement stairs at Grandma's house. I kept saying, I'm scared. I don't want to go down there. I was speaking to my mother and Grandma, who was there too. I was deeply sad because at that point I knew I was totally alone in this world. No mother, no grandmother, the ones who were supposed to care for me the most, the ones who were supposed to protect me. Then we were in the basement with the corpses. I was supposed to, quote, do something sexual with them. Mom was not home. She was angry. She was not herself. She was taken over. Again, I spoke about this some videos back about how hard it is to talk about this, but in multi-generational ritual abuse, which is very prevalent. Don't think that this is a rare thing. We have Masonic lodges on every street corner of the whole world. They wall up the buildings. There's no windows. They have their congregation that do these kind of things. It's trauma-based mind control. It's MK Ultra. People participate in these things and they have zero recall. It's such a scary thing to think about it, but one can come out of it when there's that desire to know and to actually have the courage to trust the Lord to bring someone in your life to help you come out of it, because you can't come out of it alone. It's too hard. It really is. You can't do this alone and think you're going to be any kind of sane or safe. So here we are. Oh, and then if you do try to come out of it without any help, like qualified help, then you kind of get half truths that are really crazy making. And then you've got the whole establishment that have their cabal Mossad representatives in all of the areas of human endeavor, like psychology, the people who prescribe the psych drugs. Then you've got the people in the hospitals and the police and the judges. And so they have their people everywhere. So if you actually try to heal, you're surrounded. You can't come out of it. So you have to have a deep faith in the Lord and trust in yourself and a sane, safe person to help you walk out of hell. Okay. So I kind of want to skip this part. It's kind of gross, but all right. Oh, this is so gross. Okay, there was a bunch of gore. There were knives and gore and yuck. I'll just leave it at that. I need to go into all the blow by blow here. The scene switched to Detroit, because sometimes when you're having recall, if something is very similar to another thing you've gone through, it's just like you kind of go back and forth. It's not necessarily sequential like you're, reading a book or something. The scene switched to Detroit, to the body of the woman who was killed there. Her name came clearly to me this time. Something like Hiranyagarbhini. Her body was yellow and green, swollen and decomposing. It lay in the room left of the Fate Museum. The one where we Gurukul kids were made to... this is all of it so gross. Anyways, here we are. The one where we Gurukul kids were made to drink blood from her then almost fully decomposed skeleton under our ashram teacher Ursula's guidance. I was really screaming and gagging at this point. Mahaprabhu also gagged. I wasn't sure if she actually threw up, but it sounded like it. After the session ended a couple of hours later, I asked her what she saw that made her react in that way. She said she saw that the woman's heart was eaten. As an aside, it is great validation for me to hear her say what she saw, because I was just screaming at that point. No words were spoken, just images, impressions, sensations, and feelings. I know that Mahaprabhu can see what is playing out in my inner world by her synced perception and sometimes her reactions. If I am insane, at least I have a witness. There was more information also coming out about how and why that woman was murdered. Of course, there was more horror and screaming about her daughter, Lalita Krishna Vallabha, aka Rachel. I was feeling Hiranyagarbhini's, the mother's emotions of loss and deep horror over losing her daughter to these monsters. The name Kartikeya Mahadev and Beast came up with no further information, just their connection. He was an Indian man who had come up some time ago in relation to the child prostitution. Hiranyagarbhini and her daughter were invited by Beast to the Detroit temple. By the way, there may be some Prabhupada disciple out there named Hiranyagarbhini. I don't really know. I have not researched it. This is just the name that was coming up in my recall, so my apologies to anybody named Hiranyagarbhini. You're not necessarily the same person, but this is just what was coming up in my recall, so I'm putting it out there as I recalled it, and it is what it is. So Hiranyagarbhini and her daughter were invited by Beast to the Detroit temple under some guise of taking a course or some learning opportunity, but his real purpose in bringing them there was to sacrifice them. Lalita's death was the first one, and was meant to show us Gurukul kids that we must submit or else. There was also some connection to Kartikeya Mahadev in this sacrifice, something to do with the proving of Beast to him. Yeah, so there's this thing that I've observed in my recall where the perpetrators, they have this hierarchy or power dynamic. So when they're doing their horriblenesses, they have to kind of one up each other on how bad they can be to show how dedicated they are to the Dark One and how willing they are to do whatever it takes to be the best. You know, this kind of inverted competition of who's the best, who's the greatest, who can cross the line even further and show that they just definitely believed God does not exist. So Beast was definitely a champ at this. There was really no end to his creative genius of how to be an offender. Just an absolute yuck. Anyhow, here we are. At this point, our session got deeply underway as the understanding of who Lalita was supposed to be sacrificed to came up. He was a dark, dark entity, a dark deity whose name began with a P. I kept trying to say the name, but it just kept coming out in unintelligible sounds after the initial consonant was pronounced. At this point, I began to see bloody bodies burning in a pile and a great fire. I was somewhere else. I was someone else. I was someone else. I was speaking in a language that sounded something like Native American and maybe Arabic. I described what I was seeing to Mahaprabhu. I was greatly disturbed. Greatly, 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 greatly disturbed. To see if it was actually me or if I was viewing some other disembodied person's memory, she had me put my hands at my side and make a movement that indicated yes and one that would mean no. I struggled to compose myself enough to do this. The words in a foreign language kept coming from the sore place in my chest. She asked me if these were my memories or if they belonged to someone else. It became clear that they were mine. This I already knew, as there were none of the usual indicators of a covering entity or a layer. I saw myself in that previous body. I was an elderly medicine woman. I perceived my body to be old. I was brown-skinned with wrinkles and long, thin gray hair in 2 braids down my front. I wore robes with bead-like ornaments. I had high cheekbones and black, dark eyes. The people who were burning were all my people. All my people were in that fire. Everyone from my tribe, even the littlest ones, the babies. I cried and sobbed on the table. Somehow I was not in that fire. Why? Why was I not in the fire too? I stood next to the heap of burning bodies, the smell thick and pungent. It was exactly like the smell of a barbecue, or as I like to call it, the animal cremation boxes. In shock and utter devastation, time stood still. The ashes were all that were left of my people. A crow cawed nearby, waiting for its meal. Through the billowing smoke, sprinkled with glowing sparks ascending to the heavens, I felt a weighty presence. 10 paces from me stood a man dressed in a black robe, with tattered edges flowing around him. His form was silhouetted in the darkness of the night, through the wafts of smoke coming from the funeral pyre. As I write this, a thrill of fear steals my stomach. I fear him still. He was not really a man, but a spirit appearing in the physical world. I spoke out loud to Mahaprabhu. He offered me power, I said. He did not speak with his mouth then or walk towards me, but his questioning, seducing suggestion was clear. He pierced me with a slightly raised eyebrow. His eyes saw through me. The power that emanated from him was both darkly sensual and deeply scary. I was wary of him. I was a shaman after all. I knew the spirits. I knew who he was. He was Pikotto, the devil. Don't you want revenge? I can give it to you, he said. Amidst the utter devastation of everything that was my whole life, he offered me power. I knew that he was bad. This was not the way of my people. On the session table, I became more emotional and told Kamra, I sat on the pyre, the ashes of my people still burning. I can still see the burning of eyeballs and the cold of the flames as it seared my flesh from my bones. I gave up my life. I prayed to the Great One. Take me to be with my people. I do not want to live without them. They were my life. I told Kamra I was confused. I could not see the Great One's hand in this. The death of all of my people? Pikotto said, we will be together, you and I. We have some work to do. You must be with me. It is the will of the Great One, or so he said. I protested. I did not want this. I only wanted to be with my people, not to hurt anymore. He said my people would be delivered when my, quote, work with him, Piku, was done, when our so-called partnership ended. And he stayed with me, Piku. He is the weight of solid lead iron. He is not some mere ghost, but a deputed servant, the personification of the age of Kali, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy himself. Most who see duality call him the devil. His existence is divinely purposeful, however, tragically insidious and cunningly murderous, and oh, so seductive. He stayed with me in that life to come. He stayed with me in the life to come, and everything was poisoned in his company. He also appears as a young boy with the legs of a goat and horns. He is worshipped in fertility rites in the spring and autumn. Other cultures call him Lucifer, but he is not the enemy of the Great One. He is merely a servant with a thankless task to engage those envious souls who reject Lord Krishna. He lures them in with promises of power and enjoyment, engages them in hellish, abominable activities, and then sends them to his own abode, hell, where they are rectified, to then enter into the animal kingdom for another round in the wheel of life and death, samsara. He allows them to believe, as they so desire, that they are in competition with God. All this I saw in a flash. I recognized his black, heavy energy to be the same as those small black pellets that were implanted into my vagina during some ritual in the basement with one of my tormentors, Beast. This is the time I saw that blue, green, gem-studded clasping hand, ring finger. There was a kind of a ring that he wore that had like a hand clasping another hand. The pellet implantation was supposed to mean that if I told anyone, Lucifer was in my womb and would know, and I would be killed. I am no longer afraid of death. That part is easy. I fear rebirth and continuation in the rotation of this material world. This I fear. This I greatly fear. It seems Picotto has been with me for a few lifetimes, making everything around me horrifying and ruining all of my closest of relationships. I saw the different forms he takes, one of which is an incredibly handsome man with copper eyes, blondish, attractively disheveled hair, and oh so seductive presence. At this point, Mahaprabhu was taking a much-needed sitting break in the chair next to the session table. She asked what was happening for me. My legs, mostly at the thighs, were absolutely numb, and it was spreading. I was feeling the sexual arousal, the out-of-place sexual arousal that usually indicates the presence of some kind of programming, and I knew that these sensations were the energies of, quote, disempowerment slowly evaporating off of me. I lay for some time in deeply felt prayer on behalf of this great personality, Piku. It was the will of the Great One that we would be together, but I thought that maybe it would be like the other spirits, that they had had a change of desire. I subsequently saw them being liberated, going to their higher guides after I released them in gratitude and prayer. At first, I saw him in his seductive manly form sitting there, almost daring me, taunting me. I prayed and I told Mahaprabhu, I want nothing else any more. Only the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani and Shri Krishna. I wanted nothing of his so-called power or a prestige or a beauty or all the things that Piku was offering through his copper, quizzical gaze. I prayed and I prayed, and I thought that maybe it was one of my purposes to show Piku the beauty of choosing love, to serve a higher master. He was so good at making people cry. Why not make them really cry in love of Godhead? He wanted to make people fall down. If he wanted to make people fall down, then why not make them really fall down, roll on the ground in the ecstasy of prema, love of Godhead? I implored him. I know that you are under contract to serve in your present capacity now as the personification of Kali in this time period, Kali Yuga. But the higher purpose for this age is to give everyone the love of Sri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the highest master. Don't you want the most power? One higher than the one you now wield? I saw his black body changing. Now it was gold and orange, but still with the skin of a reptile. I did not see him liberated as the others were. I told Mahaprabhu, I know that he is here to test me. She said, yes, that is what you were meant to see. I hope you passed. I desire that Piku switches roles. He is so powerful. I can just picture people all over the world who would be liberated by his liberation, all those super deeply demonic personalities who were presently carrying out unlimitedly sinful acts hourly all over the world. With Piku's liberation, who is the very personification of evil, they would be freed up to change, and then just see what this world will become. Everyone chanting the names of Gauda, Gauda, Nitai, Nitai. I guess we will find out more later. As of now, Piku is still there. I, however, made my choice, and I will not be rescinding it. There was more. My aching heart poured out words in a foreign language. I kept repeating the words that phonetically sounded like Ukainu, Ukainu. I'm slightly obsessed with trying to figure out what that means. Ukainala, Ukainala. These sounds I wrote down. Vaikata tu, vaikata tu, pohitala, ahuntalafa, vaikata. I said many times. I kept meaning. I said these words many times. I think it means stop. And Ahuda, Ahuda. Ahuda seems to be my name. I saw tall cliffs, ocean spray, and rich green foliage all around me. The island view had volcanoes as the horizon. A beautiful young woman was at the summit of the cliff. It was sad and felt achingly poignant. She was to be sacrificed. Her body was burning as she plummeted to the ground. As she fell, my heart and all that was good fell with her. She was my daughter. I'd pushed her to her death, but why? Why? My cognitive mind grasped for answers that still deeply lay buried in my subconscious. Only time would tell if Supersoul would allow me to see the whole picture. He revealed it piece by piece over the next several months, sometimes in session and sometimes at my kitchen sink. The story kept coming out in that language and in movie-like sequences, movie-like pictures. So did the strong emotions that form the foundation for this present body. This must be why the Lord showed me all of this in prayer, to my fervent prayer of, why, my Lord, why? Again, as I was really, my only aspiration in going into session every week was to heal my body, to heal my mind, and all of this started with the desire to do something pleasing for Srila Prabhupada in the preaching mission, because I knew that the organization, ISKCON, was not representing what I knew his teachings to be, and I couldn't understand. I couldn't put my finger on it. It just felt wrong. There was something that wasn't right. And so I was praying in this way. So as the Lord was revealing to me what the root cause of my own physical issues were, especially, because there was just massive loads of sexual abuse in my life. So it showed up in my reproductive organs, but then of course the other places in my body. And again, we've been over this so many times, but the body can't lie, and it stores information from so many lifetimes, just like a digital camera with unlimited capacity. And when you finally find those lost hidden files, they come up and they play in real time. So people get memory in different ways, but for me, the Lord has given me almost like high def movie kind of visuals that come out with the memory as it's evaporating from that stored pocket of chitta or consciousness in your body. So I'm writing these down because it was part of my adventure in the cavern of my heart and self-realization. A young girl, pudgy with black hair and eyes, of around 3 to 6 years old, was taken up from the village below. Supersoul is such a gentleman. All that I was shown was a scene with this little girl, blood, fresh upturned earth, a shallow grave, golden rooster feathers and a knife, a sacrifice, and my own complete and utter horror. Even Kama shuddered as I felt the wave of horror of death sweep over me. On her table I cried, and I spoke and sang in that language, all the while feeling my deeply sore and aching heart, longing to be in that grave with this little girl. All this was so wrong. It was so wrong. Why must one destroy that which is dearest? Why must one destroy that which is greatest? Confusion still. Why must that be? Why must that be? And what is the purpose of this so-called sacrifice? Who has demanded it? Why is it ordered? I cried and cried for my granddaughter, who I knew that little girl to be. I have a sinking feeling that I was the one who killed her in that shaman lifetime. I put two and two together with my cognitive present consciousness. I killed her in a sacrifice to appease the spirits. The Lord spared me the actual visual of the knife slitting her throat. Oh my God, I don't even want to say this out loud. Oh, my daughter's awake. My son is on the phone. This video shall pause. Cliffhanger. Ugh. I cried and cried for my granddaughter. I had a sinking feeling that I was the one who killed her. I put two and two together. I killed her in a sacrifice to, quote, appease the spirits. The Lord spared me the actual visual of the knife cutting her throat. I could not have managed that. I just knew it. She was my granddaughter. I have a feeling I somehow fatalistically, firmly believed that I had no other choice, under Bhikkhu's guidance, of course. I cried for her, for my daughter, but mostly for myself. No one else understood how hard this was for me. I was the one who was suffering here. I had to do this for the so-called, quote, good of the people, or so I thought in that very ignorant lifetime. On the session table, I marveled at my ignorance in that life, my state of consciousness that the Lord mercifully allowed me to now re-experience. It sure did explain a lot about my life, about my lot in this lifetime. Lord Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita the divisions of faith as religion in the mode of ignorance, Bhagavad Gita 17:4. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Bhagavad Gita 7:19. And those penances and austerities which are performed foolishly by means of obstinate self-torture or to destroy or injure others are said to be in the mode of ignorance. I am very clear now why Krishna closes the curtain of remembrance from one life to the next. How could one carry out the hopeful pursuit of temporary enjoyment, knowing full well how it always ends? What we are left with are only the deepest impressions and inclinations of emotion that guide us in the next life, and of course, the sticky, tangled strings of karmic interactions, entwining us all in the drama for supremacy and the pursuit of temporary happiness in this place called the material world. Comrade Prabhu and I spoke of this grand drama of the material world. We all play these roles with such conviction and passion, life after life, switching and desiring different parts in the play. The witness and producer, aka the Supreme Personality of Godhead, patiently provides for everyone and waits for us all to finally get to the point and give up our acting careers, to finally ask the questions we all eventually come to during our times of utter personal catastrophe and bafflement. Why am I suffering when I only want happiness? What is this place? Dear God, where are you? Then with a smile, he speaks in his soothing voice, deep as rolling thunder and soft like velvet. Here I am. Would you like to come home yet? Yes! I was screaming. Yes, yes, yes. My heart screamed, but when will I have attraction and realize knowledge to come home, my eternal home, instead of just enough horror to keep running away from it? When will I have the courage, the faith, and the trust to see his loving hand in all that I have passed through? When in full self-power of the eternal self, the soul within, will I take full accountability for all of my experiences here in the material world? I am very close. The Lord has answered my prayer, as usual, patient gentleman that he is. Now I will start my rounds for the following day and be grateful for my lovely husband and children that I am having a really hard time relating to right now. I feel like a foreigner and they, strangers of sorts. I am still very much in the experiment. I am still very much in the experience of that shaman woman body. Who am I again anyway? And where did these people come from? Surely not from me, for I have been running so fast. How have they stayed with me? So there were a lot more sequences that came out around this lifetime over probably 6-7 months. It was slowly coming to the surface and coming out, and it wasn't just like coming out in official sessions. I would be just doing anything, you know, sitting there, had a minute to myself between duties, and I would just have a moment of quiet, and then out would come another one, and out would come another one, and the whole thing got pieced together. And in the subsequent videos, I will hopefully string together the sequence of events that were revealed. But it sure did explain a lot about this lifetime and the suffering of this lifetime. And it also explained the karmic interactions that I had with the current players in this drama, the souls dressed as demons, as perpetrators, and how we had interacted in previous lifetimes, and what my purpose was coming forward, and the purifying of that mentality that allowed for the horrible sacrifice of my daughter and granddaughter in that life. I was a shaman woman. There was no understanding of the supreme person, God. There was only the village perceptions of like a force or some impersonal power, or if there was a person, it was unknown, but it was beyond perception. What was very perceivable to me was that spirits moved people. Like there were spirits in nature, there were spirits in the water, there was air, ground, and there were good spirits and bad spirits. And that was my understanding, that the spirits ruled everything. And in order to get what you wanted, you had to work with the spirits or appease the spirits. And that's why I quoted that Bhagavad Gita verse here, where Lord Krishna is describing religions and the different modes of material nature. So in that particular one, he's saying that people in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. So this whole satanic ritual abuse that I experienced in this lifetime was essentially people in the mode of ignorance thinking that in order to get what they want in this world, which is material sense gratification, name, fame, glory, power, whatever it is they want, their belief is that to get those things, they have to sacrifice that which is dearest to them, usually a loved one. That's why, you see these Hollywood people, their mothers go missing, their children go missing, their wives or husbands go missing, and then suddenly they rise to fame because they made the ultimate sacrifice of that which was dearest to them, and now they can be enlightened and reach the true state of what they wanted, which was name, fame, and glory, the same old story, till they find out that there's nothing there and they're numb inside anyways, and the only enjoyment they can actually feel is the grosser and grosser and grosser forms of it, which are horrible and abominable, which is, of course, the human trafficking and the adrenochrome. And, some people say that better than sex is power. So they just want more and more of it because they can't feel anything, because their hearts are so hardened from so much pain and so much abuse and mode of ignorance, that they're worshiping ghosts and goblins and spirits, and they're summoning them with all of their rituals, like I'm going to go out on a limb here and piss a bunch of people off, the death of the Pope. That whole thing was an absolute satanic ritual. Don't even get me started on that. The guy was an actor. The whole thing is an act. The whole thing is a worship of the Dark One. I didn't ever believe in the devil until I met him, which was really in these recalls. As a Hare Krishna Kid, there's not this conception of duality that the Christian world has. There's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then there are his agents, the demigods, who are in charge of different aspects. So Kali, the personality of quarrel and hypocrisy, has the unsavory service of degrading the soul for the purpose, for a higher purpose, just like the winter degrades everything, but for rejuvenation. So when the soul, under these conditions of degradation, finally realizes, hey, I don't want to stay in this place of birth, death, disease, and old age. I want to go home. I want happiness. And I'm not happy killing and eating my babies and my children. You know, that's what Srila Prabhupada said. You know, these Rakshasas, you know, he builds it up, and in his purports, you know, these fools and rascals, these mudhas, they think that they're going to be, you know, they think they can have this and I can have that. But ultimately, and then I'm waiting for some like consequence, like they're going to get their heads chopped off, or they're going to go to hell forever. But no, that's not what Srila Prabhupada says. He says, but they won't be happy. And I'm like, oh man, but that's true. Because ultimately, no amount of punishment is going to change the desire unless it comes from, I want to be happy. And how do I get happiness? How do I actually get happy? Because it's our nature as a spirit soul to be happy. And happiness comes from service, from love. It doesn't come from exploitation, you stupid demons. So stop being a demon, make a new choice, take Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and let's go back home, back to Godhead altogether. Hare Krishna, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hare Krishna.